welcome back. Welcome back from the break. This is the senior leadership panel discussion. My name is Rakesh Chalsani. I'm an engineering manager here in the monetization org of Pinterest. I lead a team of machine learning engineers, primarily working on ads content understanding. As you can imagine, with LLMs and everything, this is a very interesting space right now. Um, I'll be moderating this discussion. We have some of the senior leaders in the Pinterest joining us today. So let's start welcoming them on the stage. We have Kushi, Faisal, Lang, and Dimitri. Thanks everyone for joining us. Together, these folks lead a diverse set of areas in Pinterest. So you'll hear a lot about like various areas in Pinterest today. They will share their background, what their teams work on, what are the exciting things that they're working on right now, and what's to come, as well as take some questions from the audience. So please put your questions in the comment section. We'll get to them at the end after a brief chat with everybody else here. So before we jump into any discussions, let's start with a brief introduction. Maybe it'll be great if our panelists can talk a little bit about like when did they start at Pinterest, what areas they lead, and why did they choose to be at Pinterest. Maybe I'll start with Kushi. How about that?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Kochi Hasra and I help lead search at Pinterest. I have been at Pinterest for over 4.5 years, and the main problem my org deals with is once a text query comes into Pinterest, what do we do with that? How do we satisfy our pinners and give them engaging but relevant results for those queries? Pinterest search receives over 2 billion search queries per week, which means we do have the kind of data where we can really leverage machine learning to solve problems. And then 60% of our queries are actually very broad head queries, which is unlike other search engines I've worked at. And the queries here will be of the nature of like fall outfits, dinner recipes, nails. And so it really gives us a lot of room to be extremely creative about how we deal with these queries and how we serve results for these queries. Last but not the least, Pinterest, I think you'll hear it from all the panelists today, but Pinterest does have a very strong ML community inside Pinterest. And we are always looking to push the boundaries of how we solve machine learning problems and challenges. And all in all, all of that really makes it very exciting to be here at Pinterest.
Cool. Thank you. Faisal, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rakesh. Yeah, plus one to what Kuchi said. Again, hi guys. My name is Faisal Farouk. I lead the trust engineering team. I've been at Pinterest for a little over a year, so probably the newest person on this panel, if I'm not mistaken. The work we do in our org, aspires to keep our pinners safe. All of their interactions, whether the content they're interacting with, the platform in general, authentication into the platform, all the experience we want to ensure is positive and fulfilling. Why I joined Pinterest was basically because of two reasons. One was the people inside Pinterest. Many of the Pinterest, not just leadership, but the others, all MLEs, machine learning engineers, and AI folks. I've known and admired them for decades. So this just felt to be the right place to be at. Not even while working at Pinterest, I've known them for long before that, at multiple conferences in machine learning and AI. And then the second one was, what really inspired me is we believe as a company that we want to be the safe corner of internet. It's in our DNA, and so what better place for us to be than at Pinterest?
Yeah, sure. That. Thank you, Faisal. Ling, do you want to go next?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ling. I lead the ads ranking team in ads quality. My team builds ML models throughout the ads delivery funnel that predict user on-site and off-site engagement with ads. For example, the probability to click, repin, convert is central. These scores are used in ads auction to optimize for pinner and advertiser experience. For myself, I was in June 2022. Previously, I worked in Google Ads Amazon retail, and coupon ads. I have been in ads and ML domain for 15 years. The reason that I joined Pinterest is because of the strong ML community within Pinterest, and I want to be part of it.
Well, thank you. Last but not least, Dimitri.
Hey everybody, Dimitri. I lead the computer vision modeling and the visual generative AI teams at Pinterest as part of the advanced technologies group, which is basically our like applied R&D group at Pinterest. I've been here for over 11 years working on ML that whole time, so I've had the great privilege of seeing the evolution of ML and deep learning specifically at the company, starting from like super rudimentary cafe Alex-Den embeddings that we built basically on a very small machine to what we have now, which is end-to-end super optimized deep learning system that basically powers everything you see on the platform. So very exciting journey. Happy to talk about it. And what kind of has kept me here as somebody who primarily works in computer vision is the really incredible data set that we get to work with on a day-to-day basis. The median like quality of the image that we see on the platform is generally very high, and then it's curated and organized by our users into these boards. And so we have kind of incredibly high quality images, but curated at internet scale. So it's a really fun playground to build foundation models in. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you everyone for the introductions. I think it's just Dimitri was just mentioning, right? Like Pinterest has been like ML first company for a very long time now, right? And everything this team collectively has done for the last decade or so is basically ML, right? It powers our experience, user experience, a lot of productivity tools within the company, and a lot of usage in the operations as well. So, I mean, many of the modern technologies is like kind of continuity to our efforts that have been going on for a long time. So before we dive into like the latest and the greatest, I want to start with a discussion, like first deep dive into how ML is leveraged right now today at Pinterest. And then we'll go into the other topics as well. Kuchi, starting with you, Pinterest has been a primarily visual search engine, right? Like, and as a search org, can you talk us a little bit about like how search team leverages ML and like what are the main challenges you face?
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. So for search, basically, we have 1/3 of the impressions at Pinterest. So it's super important for us to make sure that we're delivering on engagement. We are giving pinners satisfying answers. And so one of the areas where we leverage machine learning, no-brainer, is for engagement modeling. But we also need to give, at the end of the day, we are a search engine. So we need to give like very relevant results to the text query that we get in. And so again, on the other side, then we have relevance to balance on. And then last but not the least, like I mentioned, a lot of our queries are very broad queries. So for a query like recipes, what recipes will work well for me as a pinner may not work well for you. And so personalization becomes really important. So we have these three axes, right? And for personalization, for example, unlike many other search engines, we actually personalize our results. So we use user sequences in the model. We also have different kinds of candidate generation techniques to generate personalized results. And so one of the challenges we face definitely is how do we balance out all these axes of importance and tasks that we need to perform as a search engine. And then lastly, the second point that I'll raise is at Pinterest, this platform has been around for over a decade. Lots of love from our pinners. So there are lots of very old content which is evergreen and which has raked up lots of signals and engagement data over the years. However, industries and verticals like fashion, food decor, home decor, food industry, home decor, these really evolve fast as well. So we have to make sure that our results are relevant to the times. So that's another challenge we are facing, where it's super easy for us to drive engagement just by giving evergreen content to pinners. But what we want to make sure is our results are relevant to the current times while maintaining engagement and relevance. So that's another area we've been spending time on.
Great. Yeah, it's very exciting work. I'll move on to Dimitri. ATG is like central research art basically for Pinterest. Right? So can you tell us a little bit about like what the ML technologies that your team has developed and like how that impacted the business so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's maybe like three broad areas that my team specifically have focused on. I think the first one is core visual understanding. So Pinterest is full of images and videos, and we need foundation models that can encode that content and produce embeddings, which are basically the lifeblood of all the downstream ML applications. So we started this effort like a decade ago when we were shipping Visual Search, which is externally called Pinterest Lens, for the first time. So we're kind of getting these embeddings as a byproduct of our work. And over the years, these core visual models have gotten more and more sophisticated. There was a vision transformer revolution about 4 or 5 years ago. Everything has blown up in scale. And now the really big major trend that we're investing a lot of time in is multimodal, meaning that instead of just training on pure images and trying to produce an embedding that just represents that, you jointly train images and text and other modalities together. And you kind of get this lifts all boat situation where the underlying embedding improves for all of those modalities. That's stacked on top of this fact that whenever you train these foundation models, you're doing this multitask learning where you're trying to farm out for all the best sources of data in the company and stuff them into this one model. So now kind of the next iteration of this embedding ecosystem is this multimodality, multitask foundation model. So we're very excited about that. That's kind of on the visual understanding side. On the flip side, the last couple of years have been really exciting for generating images. So you take some representation of an image or just pure noise and you produce images. So this is almost like the inverse operation in some ways. So we have a foundation model here called Pinterest Canvas that we've been developing for the last 18 months. And that powers this Performance Plus application, where you can take products, produce customized, personalized backgrounds for them. There's many more things you can do with that model, but that is a big chunk of our R&D work. And the final area we're investing into is generative AI has unlocked these new ways to do LLM-assisted search and recommendations. I can't say too much here yet. A lot of things are still under wraps, and there'll be some exciting things coming. But I'll say this: the user bar for what a recommendation system in the generative AI era can do keeps going up and up and up. So you should be able to handle much longer queries, much more complicated inputs, etc. So that's the challenge we're working towards.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting to see like the evolution of content understanding. It's from the images all the way now to the Gen AI. Well, Ling, I'll move to you. I think ads is like the fundamental revenue generator for us. Like so can you talk us a little bit more about like what role ML plays in this space?
Sure. As is our primary monetization source, I think the goal of ads performance is to serve relevant, engaging ads to the pinners that can enhance user experience on the site while delivering the ads value to our advertiser. ML is super important in two directions. One, I will explain, one is on the demand side and one is on the supply side. On the supply side, ML plays a key role in ads recommendation to enhance the match quality between pinners and ads. This is done through better prediction of user engagement with ads on-site and off-site, and better funnel efficiency. In 2024, AdsML heavily invested in large model, longer sequence, better entity representation from cross-domain data, etc. Over the past 2 years, AdsML was able to improve click-through rate by 30 to 40%, and cost per click and cost per conversion by double digit. On the demand side, ML contribute to enable new ads product to advertiser. So we, as Dimitri mentioned, we launched Performance Plus this year and observed significant improvements on lower funnel performance, both on click-through and on conversion. I wanted to highlight 2 offerings in this launch that was empowered by ML. The first one is dynamic creative optimization. Ask Creative is a superpower of Pinterest as a visual platform to bridge the advertiser and pinner. In the traditional recommendation system, advertisers have to create hand-created creative, which will later be passively selected by the recommendation system. The optimization of creative elements, such as their format, their image assets, their text overlays, are often overlooked, despite its potential to significantly influence user behavior on site. Dynamic creative optimization leverage innovative AI and GenAI technologies to generate creative content at scale. When we launched this in early October, this led to double-digit CTR growth in 2024. And the other one is ROAS optimization. This is one of the most wanted products for a lower funnel performance advertiser. Pinterest already offer conversion volume optimization. This year, we were able to offer conversion value optimization. There are a lot of data challenges, such as the label quality, label sparsity, right? But we are able to tackle this through a powerful ML model. We launched the ROAS beta in early October and observed 15% increase on conversion value for participating advertisers. We plan to open this for eligible advertisers in Q1 2025.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, as part of the monetization team, it's like the Performance Plus was like really exciting launch this year. Cool. Last but not the least, Faisal, I think trust is like, as you mentioned, like this is one of the fundamental pieces of Pinterest, right? Like that's something that we believe strongly. So can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you face here and like, how ML is actually helping you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rakesh. So, as I said, our main aim is to ensure that, the experience that our pinners have on the platform is safe and fulfilling, right? Which basically means that we have to understand the quality of the content and either filter out the content that is bad or at least provide understanding to our downstream discovery surfaces so that they can downrank or uprank or personalize the content in that manner. So the basic problems that we face are threefold. One is just the sheer scale. To give you an example, every day we filter out tens of thousands of pins from discovery surfaces. And that's just the number of pins we filter out, which is 1% of the actual pins we filter. So this is a huge scale, like every second filtering out tens of thousands of pins, right? So this is a very large scale and just is not possible to do using humans in the loop or doing enforcement or doing content evaluation or reviews using humans. So we basically build models and we build machine learning models that understand the content and filter out any content that is policy violating, adult content, self-harm, or any content that we don't want on the platform. We just filter it out from our discovery surfaces. So that's where, it's basically only ML using machine learning technology that we can achieve that. The second biggest challenge is we often don't have the luxury that many other machine learning systems have. We sometimes operate in a very low resource environment. As I was mentioning, only probably 1% of the data is what we overall filter per day, right? At the time of ingestion or processing, 95% of the content is good. It's only 5% of the content that's bad. And within that content, there are categories that are very low resource, like 0.01 or 0.1% of that data is actually bad, right? So it's the classical problem of needle in a haystack. How do we find when your classes are so imbalanced? How do you create models, and how do you basically work on identifying not just identifying and deactivating or filtering out the content, but also when you have such low resource environments, how do you actually measure how well you're doing, right? Because the statistical power in the systems isn't that high. So really fascinating things problems that we have to tackle, and we build technologies around it. And the third pillar is where we get into this defender's dilemma, which is a defender only knows what we have to protect, and versus the attacker has every degree of freedom, right? So what we need to ensure is that our response is generalized, our response is fast, and our response can be executed very quick. Can be executed, right? So attacks like spam and account takeover, these are fast and furious attacks. They're often coordinated. So our systems should be able to detect anomalies. Our systems should be able to understand what are some of the patterns or the features that we can quickly grok from the attacks, put them into our predefined models, change the thresholds or whatever, doing a dynamic thresholding, and block those signals. So again, these are all fascinating problems to have in the machine learning space. And as Kruchi right in the beginning said, we're an ML first company, so we often base our principles on how can we scale our responses, how can we have less human involvement where we can automate much of the things with machine learning.
Cool, awesome, yeah, thank you for that explanation. I think a lot of you already mentioned this thing, like the ML is going through a lot of exciting new changes here, right? Like this GenAI with multiple modalities right now, larger models we're building, and better compute. What I want to dive into is like, what is your vision of leveraging these technologies in your respective organizations, and how do you think that they will impact your organizations? I'll give it back to you, Faisal, to begin with. Like, you talked a lot about operations. Like, how does? Can you please share your thoughts? Like, how do you think these will be leveraged?
Yeah, absolutely, and not just how they will be leveraged, but how we pretty much already are leveraging, right? Not just the large language models, as Dimitri was talking about. What has literally changed the landscape is large multimodal models, right? Understanding of images or videos or media in conjunction with text or other data that comes along with it. And to give you an example of what we measure bad content on the platform. It's a very commonly known metric in the industry, is called prevalence. Like, it's basically how much of bad content is for a particular category on the platform in terms of percentages. Usually it's impression weighted. And you sample the content and you send it for review, and the humans label what part of it is actually bad, what part of it is good, and then that's your unbiased measurement. And that's what we call prevalence. But given there are humans involved and it's a slow process, historically we would do it only at periodic intervals because there was a cost to it, humans, slow, and everything else. With the introduction of these large multimodal models, now what we actually are able to do is we tune these models for a particular category, and instead of sending the labels to review to humans, we do a first pass with GenAI. Now, we understand this is a biased measurement. This is not unbiased like it was. But what you can now do is you can get this continuous. So you can get a continuous unbiased measurement, which you can calibrate with a biased measure, which you can calibrate with an unbiased measurement, which is periodic, right? So, this has opened up a completely new avenue for us, that we now measure our prevalence and measure how well we're doing continuously instead of periodically that we used to do historically. And then the second part where we are now getting into is to our vision really is, how can we use GenAI as the first reader or the first reviewer? Because not just there's human cost involved, there's also the wellness cost involved to people that actually look at this content and review it. So how can we start using more and more of GenAI as this first reader, and where GenAI or our models are not sure, start sending it to human review. So this has opened up so much opportunity for us, and these are exciting times, that not just cost savings, but also like making sure that we take care of the wellness of our people, and at the end of the day, care of wellness of our pinners and the platform.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, thanks for sharing. Link, do you want to go next? Like, how's these technologies impacting ads now?
Yes. Yeah, I can go next. So we embrace advanced ML techniques in Ads Ranking Stack. For example, for the GenAI space, I just talked about the dynamic creative optimization that was heavily using GenAI. On the model and architecture side, I want to highlight 3 things maybe. The first one is the large foundational model. We have been building super large foundational model that leverage data across different domains and leverage super long user sequence to understand pinner journey on-site and off-site. These super large foundational models can be used either on teacher-student distillation to produce servable models with high performance in production, or generate representations through embeddings that can be used broadly across ranking stack. We observe big success from this workstream. The second one is alongside the bigger and larger model. Naturally, right? Training and serving efficiency are top of mind for any ranking models. We leverage quantization techniques such as half-precision serving on our large models to save GPU usage. With FP16 serving applied to our model, it reduced considerably GPU resource and serving cost without any regression on model performance or business metrics. The third one is highly leveraging GPU at serving time. All our heavy rankers are using GPU serving since early last year. This year, we explored leveraging GPU serving in the retrieval stage to unlock big opportunities in the upper funnel recommendation system, and have been observing very promising gain. I look forward to seeing the full launch of this in early next year.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, great things. A lot of really exciting things. Dimitri, can I get your take on what's happening in ATG?
Yeah, I think my answer probably just be building on top of some of the projects that our team has already been investing into. But I mentioned that we have this big paradigm shift of moving all foundation content embeddings to this multimodal world. And I think the natural next evolution from that is if you have encoders for all the modalities that project kind of in the same embedding space, it becomes really compelling to start building, say, decoders on top of that. So for example, if you want to build a generative application on top of that that can understand Pinterest at a very native level, it becomes feasible to start building like visual language models like Lava, for example, but for Pinterest that is built entirely with Pinterest data. That now becomes a possibility. So I think that that's what the near future holds for us, which is the representation learning piece seems like it's coming together really nicely. And now we can end-to-end start training these VLM models that can start producing content. There's another aspect of doing this multimodal understanding, which is that you can combine embeddings from different modalities to construct really complicated queries. There's actually going to be a talk later today on hybrid search, which is kind of this ability of I have a visual query, so that's usually what we would call visual search, but I want to modify it with some text. And the simplest manifestation of that would be like, here's a picture of a home decor scene, but I want there to be more blue aesthetic in this image. How do you natively combine that? So we've been partnering really closely with Kirchi's team actually to try to get this right and try to rebuild this like really from the ground up. So again, a shout out to the talk later today, but that's taking up a lot of our research cycles, how to build this well. And then the other big R&D effort on my team is on the Canvas, Pinterest Canvas side. So this is this text image diffusion model that Ling had also referenced in the Performance Plus launch. So we got the first thing right, which is we can generate backgrounds for products and they feel compelling. They feel more interesting than just a product in a white background. That's great. That's kind of step one. But once you want to start layering in personalization, for example, into that kind of product. So now you have to have diffusion models, which are pretty complicated as is to train and fine tune. And now you want to be able to condition them on some kind of user representation, for example, user embeddings, which Pinterest has invested a lot of time into Pinterest, but it's very not obvious. Like, how do you do this personalization at scale? So lots of exciting work going on there. Again, we publish quite a bit, so we're hoping to be able to talk about this a lot more next year. But that's what's keeping us busy right now. Those two broad areas.
Awesome. You actually talked about search. I think I'll give it to Kirchi to kind of briefly talk about like what's happening on search using these technologies.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the things that everybody has already covered. So in addition to that, I do see a lot of impact with Gen AI for sure. For every problem that we have, nowadays we start with, hey, can Gen AI help us here? One example is we did launch a feature a few months ago where, again, going back to that problem of us getting a lot of topical queries on Pinterest. And we know that users are, yes, looking for just pin recommendations, but many a times they don't know how to exactly use words for what they want. And so we try to provide more query-based recommendations to them. And so taking those broad queries, one of the ideas we had was, hey, what if we ask Gen AI to let us know how to kind of divide up the space into into useful query recommendations to give to users, and for which and then they can go deeper into the query, right? And so that feature was well received by our pinners and something we've already launched in production. The other part I wanted to touch upon is, again, like LLMs and how embedding LLMs into our relevance model has actually shown like massive relevance wins for us. Using it has been challenging because using LLMs directly in the model makes the model really large, and so we cannot use it in direct inference during serving time. So then we used model distillation techniques to have this LLM embedded model as like a teacher model, and then train that teacher model, fine-tuned it on hand curated relevance labels that we get, and then used like a whole lot of engagement data to get additional labels to train a student model, right? And that student model then goes into our production. So there are these techniques where, of course, all these new technologies, they're all about more parameters, bigger size models, and so as we leverage it, the challenge also is how to productionize all of this, and that's something that we also spend a lot of time on.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for actually like answering all, getting the details of like what's happening. Let's take a few questions from the audience here. Let me quickly grab some. All right, maybe the first question that I have. 1 second. Okay. All right. So let me start with this one. How is the roadmap of innovation and releases structured? How does everyone work together to push that forward? Is it one goal or many goals? Maybe I'll start with Ling.
Sure, I can speak for like my organization, right? For Ads ML, I think we have very clear goals. Ads revenue, definitely for Pinterest, CTR and CBR for pinner experience, and CPC and CPA reduction for advertiser. In terms of how we structure our roadmap, I feel like for Ads ML, there are a balance between like the urgency to deliver revenue goal, right? While we have some big ML bets we want to invest. So this is something we constantly need to balance and incorporate in our roadmap. I think there are several things we take into consideration throughout the process, right? First is the data-driven ML intuition. Deep dive into your model and identify where the biggest opportunity is a constant practice for my team. Some of this don't need like even fancy ML architecture change. Some low-hanging fruit, like certain aggregation or interaction features, can have short development cycle and bigger business impact. That's something we will prioritize in our roadmap building. Second is learning from successful or unsuccessful stories across Pinterest and the industry. This is the part where I really love Pinterest ML community. Whatever works in one area, right, whether it's in ads or core or trust and safety, can have super fast adoption into production in another organization. So for example, for Ads ML and organic side, we constantly exchange ideas on what is working, what might not be working or have high ROI. This guided us through low-risk projects. Third one, in my roadmap building, I always put aside resource that can bootstrap longer-term wins. For my org, I usually leave like 30 to 40% of time on big bets, foundational model, or like in entity representation learning. The cycle is usually longer, both on ML side and also on infra side. So we usually plan this several quarters ahead. And last but not least, Pinterest actually have a great culture of win or learn. This is especially true for ML projects. My team has a tradition to document and share learnings for failed attempts and deep dive on why this is not working for our space. If we know something is clearly not working for us, we can save a lot of time hanging around some dead-end investment. So that is basically my philosophy of building my team's roadmap, achieve the ads-related goals.
Sounds good. Dimitri, you want to quickly add from ADG's perspective? I think that you'll have a different perspective from this one as well.
Yeah, I think our team's structure charter is such that we will often like partner up with other teams, whether it's monetization or trust and safety or other teams across core like search, where there's a specific maybe problem that is not being addressed by the current set of technology. So for example, the ML model is not able to reliably predict a certain category of harmful content, or this hybrid search example that I had raised earlier, where maybe there are certain types of queries that aren't working well, or in the monetization case, core image understanding, like is there a better input signal that we could be using to understand like the advertiser content. So that's usually the fidelity of the problem that's passed on to our team, and then it's much more like let's brainstorm with that team and work on a longer range solution. So our team would usually operate on like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now. What is the state of ML technology that we want Pinterest to have? What investments do we need to start making now to get there? So it's at a slightly longer term horizon for the ML work itself. And I personally have this kind of philosophy or culture that like there should always be some amount of trust that the team has that there is an incubation space for emerging technologies where we just don't know what the application might be. So diffusion model is actually a really good example of this. Probably end of 2021 is when some of the original papers on this were starting to get a lot of traction. And so we just had kind of like one person who was kind of tinkering with them, building some early prototypes with no real application in mind. And so that is, I think, having a little bit of carve out for this long-term investment is also really important.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, we'll move to the next question here. Hey, how do you manage personalized pin recommendations, balancing the short-term and long-term interests of the user? I'll give that to Kuchi.
Yeah, I can talk to this question. We on search and a few other surfaces, we definitely personalize very, very heavily. Of course, in terms of like how we personalize, we go for user sequences, and nowadays, super long user sequences. And the way I'd like to think about how we make sure that we're balancing it is sort of like fine tuning with our engagement data, right? So usually what happens is these long sequences go into our models as features, right? And we are training those models for specific engagement-based tasks. And so that's one level of control we have as to how much we prioritize something very old or content that's very new, because our engagement data helps us understand which ones will actually make a difference, right, in terms of pinner satisfaction. And then, of course, every such iteration goes through A/B experimentation. And once we do an A/B experiment, we have a pretty rigorous culture of looking at like every aspect of what's changing and why, and we make sure whatever we are launching is to the satisfaction of the pinners. So I'd say of course, like using modern technologies of like sequence length, like history of our users Pinterest usage, all of that helps us personalize our results, and then engagement data guides what to what extent should we be personalizing.
Okay, awesome. We are actually at time at this point, so thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us. I hope this conversation was great. A great learning for all of you. It was definitely for me. I think we'll have a 15-minute break right now, and after that, I think there are some lightning talks. So please hang in there, and Hope to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.